Representing Canada's financial capital, the fourth largest city in North America, and the most amazing city in the world. This is Toronto Business Journal.
I'm Dr. Sam Dubé of the Toronto Business Journal, and coming up on our next episode, we sit down with one of the most prominent figures in the Canadian political landscape today, none other than the Honourable Maxime Bernier, three-time cabinet minister under former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper, and now the founder and leader of the newly formed People's Party of Canada. You don't want to miss this interview. And as a bonus, we feature a preview of our chat with Richard Carleton, the CEO of the Canadian Securities Exchange, the exploding stock market, highly favored by entrepreneurs, challenging the mighty Toronto Stock Exchange, and taking the financial world by storm. And now we welcome you to the Toronto Business Journal. So hello, Dr. Sam Dubé here for the Toronto Business Journal, and it is my honor to be joined today by a longtime MP for the riding of Beauce, Quebec, a multi-time cabinet minister under the Harper Conservative government, and of course, the leader and founder of the People's Party of Canada. Please join me in welcoming the Honourable Maxime Bernier. Monsieur, merci. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much, Sam, for having me today.
Well, the honor is ours. And you and I had a little chat on the phone prior to this, and I'm going to jump right into it, Maxime, if I may, and discuss a little bit about what seems to be an unfairness in the way that small business is being treated with regards to these protocols and restrictions during the pandemic. And then we compare that to how big business is being treated. Can you please comment to this? Because I know there's a ton of frustrated small business owners out there, businesses literally dying out there, and big business seems to be just plugging along.
You have a point there, and you're absolutely right. During that COVID-19 hysteria, if I can express myself like that, the provincial governments did lockdowns all across the country. But they allow people to go to Walmart or Costco and a big business, but not to go to their local business store. And I said it is unfair. First of all these draconian lockdowns are unconstitutional, unfair, unjust, illegal. And that's why, I did a video about it more than 10 months ago. And I said every business is essential. So what the provincial governments did to small businesses, it is something that they never did that before. It's the first time in the history that we have lockdowns all across the country and in other countries to fight a virus, and it's an experiment, and it's a failed experiment. And that's why I'm arguing and I'm traveling across the country to be present at these freedom rallies all across the country. And there's a lot of small business owners over there that they don't understand why their government is doing that to them. And I agree with them. And after that, the federal government had to come with kind of financial support for the economic loss of these businesses. But that's not what they want. They want to be able to reopen. And I hope they will be able to reopen soon, because a lot of them won't reopen and will go bankrupt. The damage that they're creating to the economy, it is something that is at the level that nobody expected, but also to the population with these lockdowns. It's a lot of people cannot have their surgeries, and they're waiting for their appointment with their doctor. So it's unfair, it's unjust, and I think that the cure is worse than the disease.
You and I spoke briefly about, what is the motivation of the provinces to enact the protocols that they do? Because I was a little confused, and you mentioned to me that, the federal government is basically providing incentive to the provinces? Because I was confused about how, in Ontario, for instance, and I'm in Ottawa right now, we've got some of the strictest lockdown procedures ever, right? And you had started to talk about that. So can you elaborate on that for us, please, Maxime?
Yeah, first of all, I think you're right. In Ontario, Alberta, and Quebec, in Ontario, you have a stay-at-home order. In Quebec, we have a curfew. We have to stay inside after 9:30 until p.m. until 5 a.m. And it's hurting a lot of people. And in Alberta, that's the same thing. Actually, in Alberta, you cannot have any rally. It's supposed to be illegal, but that's part of the right that we have in the Charter of Rights and Freedom in Canada. You have the right to protest. You have the right to rally. But in Alberta, they are saying, no, you're going to have a huge fines if you're doing that. So that being said, I think that since the beginning of the crisis, the federal government and provincial governments, decided to fight the virus with lockdowns and stay-at-home order. And they did a lot of advertising about it. They did a lot of, and in Quebec, for example, like I told you, the Quebec government spent more than $135 million on advertising on COVID-19 the last year. So it is most than all the provinces together. And so all this propaganda coming from the federal and provincial governments, that was very efficient. And a politician usually wants to be elected. And so what is happening right now is we have all these lockdowns, but the advertisement and the publicity on that was very, very strong. And you cannot hear the other point of view in the mainstream media. They try to discredit us, and they don't want to have other point of view coming from other medical experts. So you have only one point of view in the mainstream media. And add to that the federal government did buy out the media with huge subsidies that they gave to mainstream media and all the advertising budget that is coming to them. So they don't have any incentive to put forward the other point of view. And because of that, the population every night, every day, remember, the Prime Minister of Canada and premiers all across the country were doing press conference every day. And you had journalists that were present there that didn't ask the stuff and questions. So that was like a PR campaign every day for a politician being in the news and going on with the propaganda. So now we have the population that a lot of them, and specifically in Quebec, I know Quebec because I saw some poll and survey that they did in Quebec. More than 60% of the population are asking for more lockdowns because they're afraid of the virus. And so now the politicians are in, and they want to have the support of the public opinion. So they scare the public opinion, and the public opinion is there. And you have the opposition in Ottawa and in every province that are not speaking against these authoritarian measures. And so because they want to be in government, and if they want to be in government, they need to have the support of a huge majority of the population. And now the population is scared, and about 50, 55, 60% of them are in favor of lockdowns and these draconian measures. So that's why you don't have any voice coming from the official opposition in Ottawa or in every province. So I'm like I told you, we at the People's Party of Canada, and me, I'm as the leader of the People's Party of Canada, I'm the only politician at the federal level that is speaking against these lockdowns for more freedom and smarter government. And we know what to do. After a year, we have all the data, we have all the statistics, and we know that that virus is affecting mostly older people with comorbidity. And 80% of the deaths in this country was people living in the long-term care seniors home facilities. And that was under the jurisdiction of the provincial governments. So they have a responsibility there. So why not protecting the older people, the most vulnerable, and open the economy like they did in other countries and like they're doing right now in some states in the US. And they scare so much the population that still the population wants to keep some of these draconian measures. So I hope that we will win the public opinion and inform people and educate people about what must be done. And I agree, and I fully like what the governor of Florida, DeSantis, is doing. And, he opened Florida, and he said, actually, no COVID-19 vaccine passport. And I think that's important. That would be the other fight.
So you really spoke to a lot of points there that I want to address, Maxime. So first of all, we don't have the red and the blue in the US that are going in, head to head all the time. And having, just a united front seemingly in our two major political parties is downright scary. And you even mentioned to me that you were attending rallies in Saskatchewan near Regina, and you got ticketed.
Yeah.
And you got ticketed. And can you speak a little bit as to, you mentioned how people are afraid and that there's this huge public campaign to, educate people about lockdowns. And now not only that, but they're afraid. So is this one of the things they're afraid of? Is there more?
Well, I think you're right. Our opponent, my political opponents, are saying that these people that are coming to freedom rallies, they're white supremacists and racist people. But, like I said last Saturday, I was in Toronto and more than 5,000 people were there at a freedom rally, and I spoke at that rally. I was the only politician, and I told them, it's important to do these rallies because we need to give some courage to our fellow citizens that they must come to these rallies. But now what is happening, like in Saskatchewan, they're saying, okay, if you go to these rallies, you may have a ticket, and it's about $2,800. So they're doing everything to scare the population to come to these rallies. But in Regina, we had more than 250 people that came, a nice Sunday afternoon. And I had actually 3 tickets in Saskatchewan because I did 3 rallies, and the police were waiting at us after the rally, me and all the speakers, and they gave us tickets. But they know that these tickets are illegal and unconstitutional. And actually, the police told us, they asked me to do that. They asked me to give you a ticket. And we said, who they? Oh, I cannot tell you. But actually, I think that's the politician. They put pressure to be sure that we'll have less people at these rallies. But that's the opposite right now. I started 10 months ago to speak about against these draconian lockdowns. And in the beginning, we didn't have a lot of people. But now, like you may know, in Montreal, we had more than 40,000 people in Montreal at a march, and that was great. So the public opinion is moving a little bit, maybe slower than I wish, but it is, and that will be the only thing that will make politicians to end these lockdowns, because they're looking at polling, they're looking at survey, and they want to stay in government, or the opposition wants to be in government. So they won't speak when you have 20-25% support. They won't be on your side. They'll be on the side of the 65% of the population. But I'm doing politics differently based on principles. And I think when you speak the truth, when you speak what you're telling people what you believe openly, with passion and with conviction, you'll be able to have more support. And I believe when you speak about freedom and Western civilization values, you cannot be wrong. So we'll have more and more support that will come, and we will win that battle, but that may take some time.
And this in direct contravention to what Doug Ford was allegedly quoted as saying when he introduced the new draconian lockdowns that didn't last very long. He said it would have been political suicide to do otherwise. And here you're talking about the other side of the spectrum and doing, what's right, as opposed to being concerned about a political career, because you called it a political market, I believe, when we spoke, a political market today.
Yeah, for them, like Ford he scared the population in the beginning of all that, and now he's stuck with survey and polling saying people are like that or they're okay with that. So he wants to be in favor of that majority. So that's why he said it would be a political suicide if I'm doing the opposite. But if you're doing the opposite, you'll be judged by your character, you'll be judged by your principle, and I think you'll be able to convince more people and stay in power. But no, they don't want to take that risk, him and other politicians. So now it's our role to educate, and I think I'm using that term because, yes, we need to inform the population. Now we have one propaganda, one story, always the same in the news. And we need to be out there. We need to be on social media. We need to go to these rallies. We need to express. That's what I'm saying to people who are there with me at these rallies, and they ask me, what can we do? Just speak up and stand up and speak out loudly about what you believe to your friends, your family, your colleagues, and don't be afraid. When we have the best ideas and the best principles, we must not be afraid to speak about it. And that's why I'm encouraging everybody to stand up and speak out, and we will be able to win. But that can take some time. But I can see the momentum right now. So if we still have these unconstitutional lockdowns during the summertime, I can tell you that I would be very, very busy traveling across the country and doing these rallies and having more support for our cause and what we believe in.
So, as you were saying, we don't have a Governor DeSantis here. We don't have a Governor Noem here, in South Dakota, and as you mentioned, at the federal level, you're the only political figure and party that is in opposition to the lockdowns. And Maxime, you already brought up another point that I wanted to discuss with you, and that is, the effort in many of the U.S. states to oppose legislatively the enaction of vaccine passports. Could you speak a little bit as to your platform on vaccine passports, please?
Yes, thank you, Sam. Actually, we are also the only party that is speaking against that. First of all, what is a vaccine passport? It's something that you saw that in communist countries, not in a democracy like Canada. So a vaccine passport will in the end have a huge impact on our day-to-day life because vaccinated ones will be able to do everything in a civil society, and they will have privileges over the unvaccinated Canadians. So unvaccinated Canadian won't be able to go to a hockey game or a rock concert or a football game. And we will ask the population, show me your papers before entering in a restaurant. And that will create two kinds of citizens. And we don't want that in this country. I believe that we are able to win that battle here. I was very pleased to see that Governor DeSantis said, we won't impose a vaccine passport in Florida. And also, we will go further if a private business like a restaurant is asking for a vaccine passport to their clientele and their customers. It will be illegal and they may have fines to pay for that. So I think that must be the position here in Canada. I'm fighting against that. I hope that the common sense will prevail. I can tell you that I'm reading some leftist journalists that are saying, it may be complicated to have a vaccine passport, so let's wait. And they're not too much, they don't have a lot of arguments in favor of a vaccine passport. So and I hope that in the near future, it will be more evident in this country that the population must be and is against that. I can tell you when I'm speaking about vaccine passport in my speeches across the country, I have a lot of support, and people say, no, we are living in a free country. We don't want to be like a communist country. We don't want to live in a show me your papers society. And a vaccine passport will be that. That will be the effect of a vaccine passport. So I hope we'll win that battle. I know that in Ontario, the health minister, in the beginning of the crisis, was speaking a lot about that. And now she's not too, I didn't hear her speaking for a vaccine passport anymore. But I think it's a strategy. And, you know, these establishment politicians, their goal is to have a big majority of the population to be vaccinated. So if they're saying, you know, we may implement a vaccine passport, so maybe you have more people that will go for a vaccine, knowing that they want to fully participate in the society. So that may be another strategy for having more people taking the vaccine.
Yeah, definitely. There's certainly some, shall we say, chess movements going on, for lack of a better term. Now, I also wanted to talk to you about, you know, this kind of unilateral perspective on the efficacy, you know, effectiveness and necessity of the vaccines. And I had asked you, what is the motivation of the federal government? And you had mentioned to me that, well, you know, they're listening to the worldwide organizations. And so could you comment to that as well? Because people want to know why they're hearing this, but they're not even getting the chance to hear about alternative perspectives. And there are physicians, there are researchers worldwide who are actually expressing a differing opinion, but not being allowed to speak, being censored on social media, being censured by their own governments, so to speak, et cetera, et cetera. So could you speak to this a little bit, please, Maxime?
Yeah, it is sad to look at all that, that we have only one point of view in the mainstream media. And you're right by saying that a lot of medical experts that are having another point of view about the vaccine and the virus, you cannot hear that. And it's scary a little bit. It's a kind of a cancel culture at its maximum hour of success. They're very successful on social media. If you look at a video from a doctor, you maybe if you can see it, look at it right now, because maybe in a couple of days it will be out. So why that is happening? I think we are in an era, a socialist era, and you know, maybe for the next 5 to 10 years. And all these international organizations like the UN, like the World Health Organization, and all these international organizations, there's a lot of socialist people there, people who believe in a world government, and they are very successful and they're speaking to civil servants and bureaucrats in Ottawa and in different provinces, and the politicians in Canada, they are following that trend. Nobody forced them to follow that trend, but they have advice from their civil servant, and they are following that. I'll give you an example. When I was industry minister, and I believe in free markets, I believe in less government, less regulation. So each time we had a new bill that my civil servant wanted me to table in the House, I had a discussion with them. So I was in my office, and on one side I had the bureaucrats, and on the other side I had my private sector economists that were giving advice to me, and I put them in competition. And I can tell you that in the end, I was listening maybe 4 times on 5 my private sector economists instead of my civil servant. But usually, minister in Ottawa or in the province, they are listening their civil servant, their bureaucrats, and they don't try to have another point of view. Contrary to Senator DeSantis, maybe he had advice from his own civil servant to do more lockdowns, but he went to go for other experts. And I'm sure that he had a meeting with them, and he said, no, these people are more convincing, so I'm going with my medical expert. But politicians are not used to that. They want to listen to their civil servant, and they don't try to have another point of view. So that's happening in Canada. That's happening in different provinces, and you have that trend about more lockdowns and more socialism in our country, imposed not by the UN, imposed by our own government, by the Trudeau government, and that's why, I said the UN, it's a dysfunctional organization. We will cut funding to the UN. We don't need that. We, as a political party, have a very strong proposal on that and on other subjects. But I strongly believe that the impact and all these countries together are speaking, and the bureaucrats, and that's the elites, and they think that they know better than other people outside their organization,
like certified experts in their field. So you were mentioning Governor DeSantis. I believe one of his advisors was Professor Bhattacharya, who is a professor of medicine and economics, I think. You have to correct me if I'm wrong, at Stanford, but he's gone on record opposing the lockdowns. And he's a certified, well-known expert in his field. You know what I mean? So we don't...
himself and other experts did the Barrington Declaration.
That's right, the Barrington Declaration in Europe, right? And on focus protection. Exactly what you were talking about earlier, about protecting our old and infirm from this deadly virus, and then letting everyone else live a relatively normal life.
Absolutely, but and that must be the answer to that virus. Like I said, the first time in our history that we are fighting a virus with lockdowns, but the worst of that, now we have the data. We know that if you're under 70 years old, your chances of dying from COVID are 0.05%. So why locking down an entire population of a country? Just protect the elders, and they will be able to stay at home and protect them, but open the economy. If you're 30 years old in Canada, you have more chances of dying from the seasonal flu than from COVID-19. So but that's the data. That's all data. It's coming from the federal and provincial governments in our country. So when you say that, they don't want, when I'm saying the mainstream media doesn't want to print that kind of information.
And because they don't want to encourage any kind of debate, because they, as you mentioned before, they would lose. And they receive their money from the government. They receive a lot of money in advertising. They had the bailout from Trudeau a year ago. So, and also they're scared. And a journalist, like the population, and this virus is deadly, but usually deadly for older people with more than one comorbidity. That's right.
And also they won't speak about other way to fight the virus other than the vaccine. So they are promoting the vaccine. I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm not. I had a couple of vaccines in my life. I'm 58 years old. But on COVID-19, personally, I decided that I'm 58 years old. I'm doing marathons. I think I'm in shape. And my chance of dying, if I have COVID, are 0.05%. So all that together, I decided myself not to take the vaccine. And that must be a free choice for every Canadian. But at the same time, I have encouraged my parents, 86 years old and 82 years old, to take the vaccine because they're older people and they're vulnerable. So everybody must be able to take that personal choice. But that's why I'm against a vaccine passport, because you have two kinds of citizen, and that's a way to force everybody to go in one direction instead of letting people decide if they want that vaccine or not.
So this segues into another topic, and I know you and I could probably talk about that topic forever, but let's branch out a little bit here and talk about this freedom of speech, because I know one of the key points for the platform for the PPC is freedom of speech, and you directly attribute that to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And look at what's happening right now on social media, right? I mean, I hesitate to say the names here because I don't want an AI bot to do the language searching on me in the interview, and then there we go, right? But you know exactly what I'm talking about. So so look at what's coming up now, the proposed bill C10.
Yeah.
And what is your opinion on C10 in its current form? Is it necessary, especially at this time? And is there anything else there that is, behind the scenes going on that we should be aware of?
Yeah, first of all, when you have a government in Ottawa that has the courage of tabling a bill like that is going 100% against our free expression and free speech, and they're saying publicly that they want to regulate internet, they want to regulate social media, and I'm 100% against that. First of all, we have a lot of censorship on social media right now. Can you believe that a former president of the United States is not able to have a Twitter account?
Yeah.
He is not a terrorist, and it's like normal. No, it's not normal. You like President Trump or you don't like President Trump, but he must have a right to have a platform on Twitter. But now it's like, it's okay, it's normal. It's not okay, it's not normal. Now they're coming to us right now. They try to, I'm very scary about the future on social media. Like you, I'm paying attention about my videos and what I'm doing there. But, I'm a responsible person, and I will always be responsible on social media or in life. But that being said, now you have censorship that exists on social media, but the federal government is coming and doubling down with a bill that will allow the CRTC. The CRTC is the regulator for the telecom industry. And they will allow them, if you have a YouTube account and you have a lot of viewers, you're very popular, maybe the CRTC will ask you to pay a kind of a tax that will go to a fund to promote Canadian content, or will look at you and tell you what you can say and what you cannot say. I'm against that bill, and I'm against the CRTC. Our position for the People's Party of Canada is to abolish that organization, the CRTC. That's the organization that regulates the telecom industry and the radio and television industry in this country. But now they want to go further: radio, television, and internet. So we don't need a regulators, and we have the criminal code in Canada. That if you're doing something concerning hate speech, that's under the criminal code. We don't need new regulations. And now the federal government is bringing that bill, C10, that will give more power to that regulator, the CRTC, to tell you what to do and what you can do on social media. That's against our Charter of Rights. And I believe that if that bill passed, you'll have a lot of organization, I hope, in this country that will fight that in court because it is unconstitutional. It's going against our Charter of Rights and Freedom in this country.
Yeah, and less cynical people might say, "Oh, it's a quick money grab to get some money into Canadian media and whatnot." And the more cynical people are thinking, "Well, look at social influencers that might have over 100,000 people following them, and they make a statement, and the government can just call them professional, right?" It leaves open the definition of these terms, which is really quite potentially, it's really scary. And this is, I think, what we leave ourselves open for. Is that some truth to that, Maxime?
Absolutely, Sam, you're right about that. And also the intent of that bill, because we have a government in Ottawa that is pandering to every special interest group. We don't do that. I said, I think in a tweet more than 2 years ago that, I won't be politically correct and I will tell the truth, you like it or not. And I won't pander to every special interest group in this country for having their vote. So what I'll do, I have policies that are in line with our principles, and this party has been created on 4 principles: individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. And all our policies are in line with these principles, and I won't do any compromise with these principles. So that being said, when we're doing politics, and our policies are for all Canadians. I'm not targeting a Hindu Canadian or a Canadian with Jewish faith or Muslim faith. No, for me, you are a Canadian. But the Trudeau government, that's one of his way to govern. It's by putting every Canadian in a box. Okay, you're a Jewish person, so I'll do something special for you. They did actually at last budget a program for Black entrepreneurs. So if you're a Black entrepreneur in this country, you can have some subsidies. It's discriminatory, and they are putting everybody in a box. And so that's why we need to do and abolish all that and unite us under the freedom principle. So that being said, that bill, if I want to go back to that bill, the bill C-10, it's based on that. They want to please the cultural industry in Quebec and in English Canada. So the way to please them is to be sure that in the fund that will promote Canadian content, they will have money and they will have some privileges. So that being said, I'm not working for the Canadian cultural industry or the Quebec cultural industry. So for us, we need to abolish that. If they're doing a good product, Canadians will buy it. Canadians will listen to that music. I believe, people are free to do what they want. If you're not able to be successful and you always need government subsidies to promote your own talent, maybe you don't have any talent.
That's a pretty brutal but truthful point I think you're making. Absolutely. Maxime, I want to shift gears here just a moment, because it is currently May 17th, 2021. And we're allegedly coming out of this pandemic, although God knows how it will be interpreted, and there's a allegedly threat of variants and whatnot. Consequences of this pandemic. You had mentioned to me about the Bank of Canada monetizing the deficit and how this could cause inflation for the next decade, possibly more. Could you please talk to this?
Yeah, you're right. So why the federal government? I'm doing, like I told you, I'm doing politics at the federal level. All these draconian lockdowns are coming at the provincial level because it's a healthcare, it's a provincial jurisdiction. So the federal government is giving incentive to provinces to do more of these lockdowns by giving them financial support for economic loss because of these lockdowns. So our position at the PPC is to stop that. We won't give any financial support to provinces because of their lockdown. So that will be an incentive to stop all that. But the federal government is broken. They don't have any money to do that. So what the Trudeau government is doing, it's simple. They are they decided to have a huge deficit. This year, it's $340 billion deficit. But when you have a huge deficit like that, there's a big risk for the private sector that is supposed to buy your Canadian bonds. But because of the risk is a little bit more, they want to have a better return on their investment. But the Bank of Canada and the Fed in the US decided to have artificially low interest rate, and they don't want to increase that, because if they increase interest rate, a lot of people will go bankrupt. A lot of businesses have a huge debt. Individual in Canada and US have huge debts also, and governments. So they cannot increase that. But they have a huge debt. So what is happening right now is the private sector is looking at that. Oh, no, I don't want to buy Canadian bonds or US bond anymore because I don't have a good return. The interest is too low. So the Fed in US and the Bank of Canada in Canada are the two entities that are buying a lot of Canadian bonds and US bonds in US. And when you do that, you are printing money out of thin air. And when you print money out of thin air, the consequences of that, it's inflation. And inflation is a hidden tax. So the government of Canada and the US will do like they did after the World War II, the decade of the 1940. The federal government and provincial governments have a huge deficit and a huge debt. So they monetize the debt. They print a lot of money. And when you print a lot of money, the value of your money is going down. Your purchasing power is going down. You have inflation. So that's another way to tax people. Instead of taking your own money in your own pockets and taking the money and you give that to the government by taxes, the government just said, okay, you can keep your money. We won't increase your taxes, but because of the inflation tax, you will need more of your money to buy goods and services. So your money will lose their purchasing power. So with the same amount of money in your pockets, you won't be able to buy the same amount of goods and services. So that's a hidden tax. And that's what it's like after the decade of the Second World War. We had that inflation, and the inflation is there. Actually, right now, the official rate of inflation is supposed to be 2%, but it's more than that. If you do your grocery, it's about 4-5%, and it will increase, and we will pay these huge deficit with that inflation tax. So everybody will be poor, and that's why we need to control the federal government. We need to be able to balance that budget and do all the cuts that we need to do to be able to balance the budget. And in our program, we want to balance the budget in 4 years, in one mandate. Contrary to Aaron O'Toole and the Conservative Party of Canada, Aaron O'Toole said he will balance the budget in 10 years. But 10 years, that's the same thing of saying, like the Liberals, that he will never balance the budget. 10 years, it's 3 mandates. So one election and mandate is 4 years. So he's saying to Canadians, I won't balance the budget. It's not important. If you don't want that inflation tax, it is important to balance the budget and you need to cut. So we'll cut all these programs, the foreign aid and the CRTC, and we'll have a policy that will be fair for everybody. All the subsidies to big business, we'll cut that. We'll try to have a flat tax for businesses. So we have a good economic plan in our platform. But because of COVID-19, to answer your question, we won't pay these deficit by increasing our taxes. Maybe they will increase a little bit our taxes, but that would be the inflation tax. And that's the worst tax that we can have.
The hidden tax, as you were saying.
Yeah.
So you brought up the PC party, and you had mentioned to me earlier that the best decision of your life was leaving the party. Can you talk to that a little bit? Explain that comment.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I like you said in the beginning, I worked in the private sector for 16 years in Montreal in the financial sector. I was a VP of an insurance corporation and a VP of a national bank in Quebec here. I work in Montreal. I had the privilege and opportunity to meet Stephen Harper in 2005. Stephen Harper was the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada at that time. And he was looking for ideas and candidates in Quebec. So I had a dinner with him, and I told him, I said, if you want to have some support in Quebec, there's 2 important policies that you must have. First one, you must say to Quebecers that you will respect the Constitution. You won't interfere in provincial jurisdiction. And second, you must lower taxes to Quebecers because we are the people that pay the most taxes in North America. And if you do that, it would be good for Quebec, but it would be good for every province. They will like their autonomy, and they will like also paying fewer taxes. So he decided to put that in platform, and we had a conversation. He asked me to run, and I did run in the first election in 2006. I've been elected there, industry minister, after that foreign affairs minister. I resigned. After that, I came back in cabinet as a minister for small business and tourism. And in 2017, I decided the election in 2015, Harper didn't win. And we had a leadership contest open. And so I was one of the candidates. And I didn't win with 49% of the vote. Yeah, it was, but I tried to stay with the Conservative Party of Canada. The platform that I ran on was very popular with the Conservative. And I spoke with Aaron O'Toole at that time. He was the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. He won against me that leadership. And with the establishment of the party, I told them, you must take some of our ideas because, they are very popular. And I tried to influence them. But after more than 10 months, and Andrew Scheer said publicly that Maxime Bernier is not representing the party anymore. Maxime Bernier is speaking for himself. And he told me personally that he won't take any of our ideas for the next campaign, the electoral campaign of 2019. And actually, I must admit that he was right when he told me that, because if you look at his platform in 2019, the last election, that was about the same one of the Liberals. So he didn't take any of my ideas. So, and I said, I won't sting that party. That party, their goal is only to win election. They're not conservative anymore. So I said, this party is intellectually and morally corrupt, and I'm leaving. And I decided to create the People's Party of Canada based on the platform that I put forward during that leadership campaign. So the platform was very popular. So we created the party with all these good ideas based on real conservative values, free markets, freedom, less government. And the next election, as you know, for the first election, we had 1.6% of the vote, 300,000 people voted for the PPC. That's not a lot, but for a new party, I think that's good, because if you compare with the Green Party of Canada, it took them 20 years and 6 elections to have more than 1.6% of the vote. We did that in our first year. And now we are going to our second election, maybe this fall, maybe next year. And we are about at 3-4% in the poll. So we can more than double our score, and that would be important. And at the next general election, I'll be a candidate again, and we'll have 338 candidates. So we'll have one candidate in every riding in this country. That will give the opportunity to every Canadian to be able to vote for the PPC. And our goal is to grow 1.6 to maybe 4, 5, 6%, and the next election will grow. And like I told you, we are in an era of socialism. So, but we need to be there. We need to be there with strong ideas based on freedom and Western civilization values. And the more people know us, the better it is, the more support we have. So I'm pretty optimistic for the next election. We will grow our support. We may have 5, 6, 10 candidates elected. I don't know, but that's the beginning. And I won't do any compromise with our principles to try to be in government and doing some compromise. No, I'm doing politics based on what I believe, and I'm pushing these ideas, and we have a vision for this country. So I think that's the best vision for more freedom in our country and a more prosperous country.
Maxime, I know you have limited time, and I'm going to try to wrap up this interview here, and definitely I could talk to you forever, but there's a couple of things I wanted to ask you. And first of all, now that you're here, are there any other issues that you really want to talk to Canadians? And our American brothers may, in fact, be listening to this interview as well. I know they're going to say, wow, he sounds like Georges St-Pierre. We love Georges St-Pierre. So at least you have that going for you there. But is it maybe you don't quite fight as well, but I bet you run better than he does.
Thanks for asking. First of all, I'm doing politics differently. I don't try to pander to every special interest group, like I told you, but also I don't try to speak to your emotions to have your support. I want to speak to your intelligence. And I like to say that the People's Party, we are a populist party, but a smart populist party, because we have a comprehensive platform based on principles. So I'm asking people, if you want to know more about the People's Party of Canada, go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca, read our platform. We are in the process to update our platform, but at the next election, it would be about 90% the same one, just to update our platform and look at it. And if you like what you're reading, what you see, I hope we'll have your support.
I checked it out, and I have to say it's very clear and concise. You list the issues, and then you list facts, and then you list the plan. basically.
Yeah.
It was very concise and it was very easy to read. So I would encourage people to check that out for sure. Maxime, anything else, any advice you can give to the average Canadian? And let's come full circle here, because we started talking about small business in light of these, in the pandemic and post-pandemic or during pandemic and these lockdowns and such. What advice do you have for small business, for mom and pop, for the student, for the average Canadian? What can you tell us?
Well, first of all, I hope that small business owners, entrepreneurs in this country that don't like what they are seeing right now, don't like the direction of our country with the Liberal government in Ottawa, do something. You can help us. You can help us by being present when we are doing these rallies. Don't be scared. If you have a fine, it's unconstitutional. You can fight it and you will win. Don't be scared to participate. Don't be scared to stand up and speak to your colleagues. That's so important. And because, like I said, we are in a public opinion war right now. We need to win the public opinion. We need to have more support. That will influence politicians. If the PPC, we have 6%, if we are able to have 6% of the vote at the next election, the mainstream media will look at us a little bit more. They will be in a position to debate our ideas. They will be in a position to give us more visibility. Now they ignore us. They don't want to speak about our ideas and our vision of the country. So please help us to help you. And I think I need you, but you need us also. And all together, step by step, we can regain our country. I'm sure we'll be able to live a normal life with a government that will be respectful for their citizens. And that's so important. But what you can do in your house right now, on social media, you can be active. In your day-to-day life, you can be active by speaking, by telling people that what you see, you don't like it, and we have the best arguments. What is the point of keeping for ourselves what we believe is the best policies or the best vision of our country? It won't go nowhere. Don't hesitate. We have the best ideas, the best solution. Be proud, speak up, and we'll be able to win that.
Well, I think on that note, then, I want to thank you, the Honourable Maxime Bernier, veteran lawyer, veteran businessman, veteran politician, and leader and founder of the People's Party of Canada. On behalf of myself, Dr. Sam Dubé, and the Toronto Business Journal, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It was an honor and privilege to interview, and I get dibs. I want to interview you again. Is that all right?
Perfect. We'll do that, Sam. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me to be with you today.
Merci.
Merci. Ciao.
Hello, Dr. Sam Dubé here once again for the Toronto Business Journal, and I'm joined today with the CEO of the Canadian Securities Exchange, that being Richard Carleton. Richard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Sam. A pleasure to be with you.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Canadian Securities Exchange, what its unique features are, and how it differs from, say, other exchanges like the Toronto Stock Exchange?
Well, the Canadian Securities Exchange is, I guess, a 16-year-old overnight success story, if you can call it that. We think of ourselves as a startup, and in fact, when the organization launched back in 2003, we were the first new exchange to launch in Canada, basically since the late 20s. That would be the 1920s.
Wow.
And so it was done in response to continued demand from Canada's corporate finance and issuer community for, I guess, an easier path to the public capital markets in Canada. The belief was that, perhaps the exchanges that served, in particular, the early stage or the startup public company market in Canada, were a little too hidebound in their approach to regulation. And we felt that by applying technology, more reports that companies would provide, use the internet to have better informed marketplace and investors specifically, that we could actually cut the costs and some of the red tape involved with companies coming onto the public markets in Canada.
Okay, so it's fully automated, right? And so
absolutely, and oh yes, no, the I worked at the other exchange group in Canada back in the last century, as we were talking ahead of time,
Right.
and we went through the closure of the equity trading floor and moving to an all computerized environment. And really, that's the case for pretty much every equities exchange in the world. The folks jumping up and down and wearing the color jackets and all of that stuff have been consigned to history at this point. We currently operate, as do all of our peers and competitors in the industry, high-performance computing establishments, which are located in various parts of the Greater Toronto area, in the case of the Canadian exchanges. And so and that's really one of the reasons that we were able to start up, is that we didn't have to have all of that infrastructure, that big trading floor, all of those people, all of the clerks and all of that. It was really just the ability to provide a very powerful, well-regulated, transparent trading service with, frankly, a few computers and a lot of connections to the dealer community in Canada, as well as the information vendors, the Reuters, Bloombergs, and so on, that provide our data to investors located really in everywhere in the world at this point. So the technology made it possible for the Canadian Securities Exchange to come into being because it made it a considerably less risky financial investment for the folks who backed us out of the gate. But I will say it was a challenging, long, slow build to attract companies to the exchange. You can imagine what it was like to convince the first two or three. And even then, it was still, it was a struggle until we hit maybe 150, 200 companies. But we currently sit at 664 companies as of today, whose securities are listed on the exchange. And we've had a number of years, going back 5-6 years at this point, where we've grown very, very quickly. And it's been a very, very rewarding experience for those of us at the exchange to be able to rub shoulders with so many entrepreneurs and to help them raise the growth capital they need to have their businesses in turn grow. And it's a great story when we see the passion, the energy, the commitment of these entrepreneurs and the teams that they've assembled and the excitement that they share when they come into the public markets for the first time. And, unfortunately, the casualty rate is high. It is a risky place. The startup market, whether it's private companies, public companies, the companies that don't make it, in fact, outnumber the companies who do make it in reality. But, that's the way of the world. Competition for capital is tough. And as I say, they're all passionate and committed, but sometimes they need to be a little lucky as well. And so we've had the privilege to work with, as I say, companies from a number of different sectors. Traditionally, you would expect a Canadian exchange looking at early stage companies to focus on the mining and oil and gas exploration space. And that continues to be a very important part of the clientele that we serve and the kinds of companies that investors can see listed on our exchange. But we made a fateful decision back in the spring of 2014 to work closely with the cannabis industry in Canada. Right. And we felt that this was a legitimate business. It was legalizing in Canada. There was a framework for these companies to seek licenses from the federal government to cultivate cannabis. They had significant capital requirements to build out these companies. And we saw no reason to not work with these issuers. And when we had a few that successfully raised capital and went public on the exchange, within weeks we had dozens more applications from their peers in the industry. And so after a short period of time, we kind of became known as the Cannabis Securities Exchange.
Yeah, I checked your website out. There's definitely ads for this going on there. So
indeed, we've continued to work closely with the industry, and that was obviously a successful endeavor for our exchange. And what it did too was that it put us in contact with
Mike Tyson.
Ultimately, with all roads led to Mike Tyson. You're not wrong, Sam.
That's a story for another day, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
But we got to work with more corporate finance teams, more law firms, more accounting firms that were supporting the work of this industry. And, they would give us a company or two and they'd say, we really like working with these guys. They're great problem solvers. They're great partners of the companies that we brought to the exchange. So our service levels really helped support the message that we were providing, that, we really wanted to help work with these companies as they grew and they matured. Now, the next big decision that we took was a couple of years later, when we had the first of the U.S. cannabis issuers who were operating legally at the state level, but in an environment where cannabis was still a controlled substance under the Controlled Substances Act at the federal level. Mm-hmm. And again, we decided that we would work with these companies and that we would list their securities. And at this point, they are far and away our largest companies at this point. I think the market capitalization of the U.S. Cannabis issuers alone is well above 50 billion Canadian dollars on the exchange. And most of our largest companies on the exchange are, in fact, U.S. multi-state operators in the cannabis.
Join us for part 2 of our interview with Richard Carleton, CEO of the Canadian Securities Exchange, in a subsequent episode of the Toronto Business Journal. I'm Dr. Sam Dubé, and we thank you for your interest.